A tutorial by LearnFast Studios.
Action listener and item listener. To implement these listeners, I am using a container. Frame. A frame is a container which is a placeholder to attach various components, in which the components are button, checkbox, label, text field, text area, etc. These are few components. These components are added to our container, which is a frame. To handle events on button, we use an action event class. To make the button to listen our statements, we use add action listener. And to handle events on checkbox, we use add item event class. And to make the checkbox listen our statements, we use add item listener. That means we need to implement the item listener interface to make the checkbox listen our statements. In the same way, we need to implement action listener. To perform actions when an event occurred, we require listener interfaces or adapters. As we are using more than one component in our container, we need to set layout for our container. Set layout is a method which sets the layout for our container. In this set layout, we need to pass the layout object. Flow layout is one of the layouts. This flow layout will arrange the components from left to right and top to bottom. Let us see the program. I am taking a class frame example and a main method, and I am going to take another class to use this frame and to implement this action and item listener. So I am taking another class my frame extends frame. In this class I extend the frame so this my frame acts as a frame. Now I am taking some components. Let us see what we want. I want to create a GUI application, graphical user interface application, in which student name, which is a label, and a text field to enter the student name, and in another line I need a student register number, which is a label, and text field to enter that register number. This is student name and this is a student register number. And after this name and register number, I am using a text area to write them the strings, which is a label, and a text area. This means text area will define the number of rows and columns, whereas the text field will only give one row with a defined number of size. And I want weaknesses column, which is also a label, and it is also a text area. And finally I want to take checkbox for the section. It is a checkbox. And finally to submit I will use button, which is submit button. And later to display what section they selected, I need another label to display the checkbox status, and another label to display the button status. So here I used totally 6 labels, 1 button, 1 checkbox, and 2 text fields and 2 text areas. Let us use these components in our class. So I am taking a button submit, and I am taking labels and text fields and text areas. As I said before, I am using text field with the name and register number, and text area strengths and weaknesses, and labels for each first label L1 for name and L2 for register number, L3 for strengths, L4 for weaknesses, and L5 to display the status of checkbox, and L to display the status of the button. And finally we used all the labels and area, text area and text fee, and then checkbox. Checkbox, I took 3 checkboxes for 3 sections: A section, B section, C section. And now let us take the constructor, and this checkbox group is used to make the user to select only one of the checkboxes. So let us take the constructor myFrame. In this constructor, let us initialize all these components. That is for making the frame to give a size, I used set size method, which will give the size of the frame. And we need to set visible true, so that all the components we added to the frame are visible to us. And let us initialize them now. The constructor for button is, it will take a string that is on the button. Submit is the name it is displayed, and we will initialize the text fields with size 30 and with text areas which saying number of rows 15 and columns 50, and another text area with the same. And now initialize the labels, first with the name, register numbers, strengths, weaknesses, and kept empty place so that later I can display the message in here. One for checkbox and another for button. And now I'm initializing the checkboxes. Before that, I initialize this checkbox group because I need to pass this checkbox group object for this checkbox to make them select only one of these 3. So now I initialize this checkbox. I passed the name of the checkbox and the checkbox group object and the status true. So the default A will be selected. And for B and for C, and next let us take I imported java.awt.event because we going to use these action listeners and item listeners. Before that, we are going to use an window listener because this frame will not close, so we need to use this window listener to make the window close. So I imported java.awt.event.star. Now I again imported another package java.awt, in which we have different layouts. So now let us set a layout for our frame. So set layout of new flow layout. As I said earlier, this flow layout will make the components arranged from left to right and top to bottom. And now I'm going to implement the action listener. So now I will add action listener for my frame in which button is submit. So I added this action listener for the button submit. This indicates the object of the action listener interface. And now I will implement item listener, and I will add item listener for this A, B and C. So A dot item listener, add item listener of this, and B dot add item listener of this, and C dot add item listener of this. There are methods which need to be overridden. For action listener, we need to override the action performed method, and for item listener, we need to override the item state changed method, in which the corresponding event classes are given as objects, as parameters. Now I am adding all these components in an order. The order is necessary because we are using the flow layout. First I will give the label name and another, then I will add the text field for name and add label for register, and I will add a text field for register and label for strengths and text area for strengths and label for weakness and text area for weakness. And then I will add checkbox A and checkbox B and checkbox C, and I will add a button finally, submit button to display this status of the button and checkbox. We use two other labels, so I'm adding them. And finally I am using a window listener to make the frame to act as a window and close when we use the cross mark at the top right side. So I am adding window listener for this frame. Window listener, in window listener we have different methods to be overridden. So I used window adapter so that I can use only the required method to be overridden. In this window listener we have a method window closing. So I am going to override this method. Window closing will take the object of window event. So in this I will say system.exit of 0, so that when I click on that cross mark, the window that means our frame will close. So our items are added, but when we click on the submit button, nothing will happen because I didn't override the methods action performed and this item state changed methods. So in this action performed method, if the submit button is clicked, then I will set text in this label that is submitted. So I am using this get text method. If button is submitted, I am using to display according to the register number. Get text is a method which will return the text present in the text field or text area, and set text is a method which is used to put the text in the text field or text area. Now I am taking that if the register number text field contains CS, then I will display file is saved in CSV file in the L5. In the label L5, I set the text as file saved in the CSV file. If it does not contain a CS, then I will display file is saved. And now I will override the item state changed method. In this method, for each checkbox, I am going to write a statement that is to be displayed in this label. So if getState is a method which will returns the state of the checkbox. If getState is true, that means it is selected. If getState is true for A, then will display that A is clicked. Instead of that, we can use getSource. GetSource is a method which will say that which checkbox is selected. If getSource method will return A, then I will display A section, link to A section, and I'm setting this text in the L label. And if getSource is B, then I will say link to B, and else link to C. So initially I took some components and I initialized them. I set size for my frame and I kept set visible, and I added listeners for the button and checkboxes, and I wrote corresponding overridden methods, and I set layout before adding them, and finally I wrote a window listener so that it will close. And now I need to call this class object in frame example, that is new my frame. Now let us compile. JavaC frame example.java java space frame example. Now see, I got a label name with a text field, and I got a label register number with a text area, and I got a text area. These two are text fields and this is text area with number of rows and columns. I can type anything here. I got label strengths and weaknesses. When I select the checkbox, it is showing link to A, and when I click on submit, it says file saved in a CSV file, because in this register number it contains CS, so it showed file saved in CSV file. Now this into mark works, that is close, because I used window listener for my class. In this program, we learned about action listener and item listener uses, and what are different types of components that we can use, and what is a container, and implementing all these components in a container, and how to create a GUI application.